Salt gives food flavor, but is it slowly harming your health? Imagine this. You're at the dinner table. A perfectly cooked meal sits in front of you, steaming, fragrant, inviting. You take a bite and something feels off, flat, bland, missing. So, instinctively, you reach for that little shaker, just a dash here, a sprinkle there, and suddenly the dish comes alive. But here's the question that has puzzled scientists, doctors, and families for generations. How much is too much? Is that extra pinch harmless seasoning, or is it silently shaping your blood pressure, your heart, and your long-term health? Stay with me, because over the next few hours, we're going to peel back the layers on one of the most common, yet most misunderstood parts of our diet. We'll explore its ancient history, the science hidden inside each crystal, the benefits our bodies actually need, and the very real dangers of overdoing it. We'll talk about how it sneaks into our food here in the US, why your favorite snacks might be saltier than you think, and how simple choices, like swapping one condiment or cooking method, could change your health story. And yes, we'll also hear real stories of Americans who transformed their health by learning how to manage this tiny mineral. So, before you shake, stir, or sprinkle again, let's ask ourselves, what role does it truly play in our lives? To really understand why this tiny white crystal has so much power over our health today, we need to step back, way back. Because salt isn't just something you toss into soup. It's a substance that has literally shaped the course of human history. Think about it. Thousands of years ago, before refrigeration, how did people keep food from spoiling? They turned to preservation. Meat, fish, even vegetables were packed in salt, giving them weeks or months of extra life. Without it, survival through harsh winters, long journeys, or sea voyages would have been nearly impossible. Salt wasn't just food, it was currency. Roman soldiers were once paid partly in salt. In fact, that's where we get the word salary. Trade routes stretched across deserts and seas, often called salt roads, because transporting this mineral was as valuable as moving gold. Wars were fought over it, cities rose because of it, and economies thrived around it. Here in America, salt also played a quiet but crucial role. Native American tribes used it not only for food preservation, but also for medicine. During the Revolutionary War, controlling salt supplies was considered essential for the survival of troops. And even in the Civil War, battles were fought over salt works because armies needed it to preserve meat for soldiers. Culturally, it's always been more than just a flavor booster. In many traditions, offering bread and salt was a sign of hospitality. In the Bible, salt was referred to as a covenant, a symbol of loyalty and permanence. And even today, phrases like "worth his salt" or "salt of the earth" show how deeply it's tied into our language and values. But here's where things get interesting. For most of history, salt was scarce, precious, difficult to get. Fast forward to the modern world, and now it's everywhere. Not just in your shaker, but hidden in canned soups, fast food, frozen dinners, sauces, and snacks. What was once treasured has now become overabundant. So while our ancestors fought to get enough of it, we're now battling the opposite problem. Too much of it in nearly every bite. And that's where the real story begins. Because while salt was once survival, in today's America, it may be silently challenging our health. But before we jump into the risks, let's pause and look at what's actually inside these tiny crystals. What nutrients does it give us? Why do our bodies crave it? And where's the line between necessity and excess? That's what we'll uncover next. So let's break this down. What exactly is salt? At its simplest, it's made up of two elements, sodium and chloride. Together, they form sodium chloride. Sounds basic, right? But don't let that simplicity fool you. This combination is absolutely vital to human life. Here's why. Sodium is one of the body's key electrolytes. Without it, our muscles wouldn't contract properly, our nerves wouldn't fire off signals, and our bodies couldn't balance fluids. It's the quiet regulator, making sure your heart beats steadily and your brain communicates with every muscle and organ. Now, chloride plays a different but equally important role. It helps maintain the body's acid-base balance and is crucial for digestion. Because it forms part of stomach acid, hydrochloric acid, the very thing that breaks down food so we can absorb nutrients. In other words, without sodium and chloride, your body would simply shut down. That's why throughout history, humans developed such a strong instinct to seek out salty foods. It wasn't just for taste, it was survival. But here's the catch. Our bodies only need a relatively small amount of sodium each day. According to modern nutrition science, most adults require about 1,500 milligrams daily for optimal function. That's less than a teaspoon of table salt. The maximum safe upper limit, according to health guidelines, is about 2,300 milligrams per day. Now let me ask you something. How much do you think the average American consumes? The answer: around 300-400 milligrams every single day, well over what's recommended. That's like taking your daily salt needs and doubling it without even realizing. And here's the kicker. Most of it isn't from your salt shaker. It's hidden in processed foods. Everything from bread to deli meats to frozen dinners. But before we paint salt as the villain, let's be fair. It's not just about risk. There are real benefits when it's consumed in the right amounts. It helps maintain hydration, prevents low blood pressure, supports athletic performance, and even enhances the absorption of certain nutrients like glucose and amino acids. So yes, our bodies need it. The issue isn't whether we need salt, it's how much we're actually getting and where it's coming from. Now that we understand the science behind these crystals, let's go deeper. What happens in the body when we get just enough versus when we get too much? How does this little mineral affect the heart, the brain, and even the way we age? That's exactly what we'll uncover in the next section, where modern research reveals the double-edged sword of salt. Now that we've covered the basics of what's inside salt and why it matters, let's look at the positive side of the story. Because, believe it or not, this tiny mineral has real benefits when used in the right amounts. Think about this. Have you ever been out on a hot summer day, maybe mowing the lawn in Texas, hiking in Colorado, or even walking along the beaches of Florida, and suddenly felt drained, dizzy, or lightheaded? That's not just fatigue. It could be your body crying out for electrolytes. Here's where sodium steps in as a hero. One of its main jobs is to keep the balance of fluids in and around your cells. Without enough of it, your muscles can cramp up, your brain can feel foggy, and your energy can plummet. That's why athletes often turn to sports drinks. They're basically flavored water with electrolytes, and sodium is the star player. But it doesn't stop there. Salt plays an important role in hydration. Water alone doesn't hydrate you fully. Sodium helps your body actually absorb the water you drink. Without it, much of that water can just pass right through you. That's why after a sweaty workout or even after a stomach bug, a little sodium in rehydration solutions makes all the difference. Nerve function. Every time you blink, move your hand, or even form a thought, sodium ions are moving across nerve cells, creating tiny electrical signals. Think of it like the body's wiring system. Without enough sodium, that communication breaks down, leading to confusion, weakness, or in severe cases, even seizures. Muscle contraction. Sodium helps muscles, including your most important one, the heart, contract and relax properly. If sodium levels fall too low, your muscles may spasm, but if they're balanced, your heart beats steadily and your body runs like a well-tuned machine. Blood circulation. When kept at normal levels, sodium helps regulate blood volume and pressure, making sure oxygen and nutrients get delivered where they need to go. Imagine your body's transportation system running smoothly. It's sodium keeping that traffic in order. And here's a fascinating piece. Some studies have shown that seniors who severely restrict sodium without medical advice can actually increase their risk of hyponatremia, that S when sodium levels in the blood get too low. Symptoms include fatigue, nausea, confusion, and in extreme cases, hospitalization. So here's the big takeaway. Salt is not inherently bad. It's a balancing act. Too much raises risks for hypertension and heart disease. Too little can lead to weakness and dangerous imbalances. The truth is, when consumed in moderation, salt is a lifeline, helping us stay hydrated, energized, and mentally sharp. But moderation is the key word. In the next section, we'll flip the coin and look at what happens when the scale tips too far the other way, when that daily sprinkle becomes a hidden overload. And trust me, the effects on the heart, the brain, and even long-term aging may surprise you. All right, we've talked about how sodium can be a lifesaver in the right amounts. But here's where things get tricky. In the United States, most of us aren't under-consuming. It's the opposite. We're swimming in it. The numbers are staggering. The American Heart Association warns that over 90% of Americans consume more sodium than they should. Remember that safe limit of 2,300 milligrams per day? Many of us are eating closer to 3,400, and some well beyond that, every single day. And where's it hiding? Not in the salt shaker on your kitchen counter. In fact, only about 10% of our sodium intake comes from what we add during cooking. The bulk is buried in packaged foods, fast food, deli meats, soups, breads, and even condiments like ketchup and salad dressings. So what happens inside the body when sodium piles up? 1. High blood pressure, hypertension. Think of your arteries as garden hoses. When too much fluid is inside, pressure builds. Sodium attracts and holds onto water, so the more you consume, the more blood volume increases, putting stress on your artery walls. Over time, that leads to hypertension, the silent killer. And here's the frightening part. You may not feel it happening. No pain, no warning signs, until it leads to something worse. 2. Heart disease and stroke. Constant high blood pressure is like a hammer tapping on your arteries day after day. Eventually, it can damage them, leading to atherosclerosis, the buildup of plaque. This raises your risk of heart attacks and strokes, two of the leading causes of death in America. 3. Kidney damage. Your kidneys act like filters, balancing fluids and electrolytes. But when sodium levels soar, the kidneys are forced to work overtime to flush it out. Over years, this strain can contribute to chronic kidney disease, or worsen existing conditions. 4. Bone loss, osteoporosis. Here's a surprising one. Too much sodium can cause your body to excrete calcium through urine, and calcium, as you know, is the backbone of strong bones. For seniors, this salt-calcium tug-of-war can accelerate osteoporosis, leading to brittle bones and fractures. 5. Stomach cancer risk. Research suggests that a high-salt diet may irritate the stomach lining and even contribute to gastric cancer risk, especially when combined with certain bacteria like H. pylori. While more studies are ongoing, it's a red flag worth paying attention to. 6. Bloating and fluid retention. On a more everyday level, excess sodium makes you feel puffy, bloated, and heavy. That swollen feeling in your hands, feet, or face after a salty meal. That's water your body is holding on to, trying to dilute the sodium overload. The irony is powerful, isn't it? A mineral that is absolutely essential for survival can also become a silent saboteur of health if taken too far. And here's the real kicker. It's not just older adults at risk. High sodium diets are affecting children, teens, and young adults in the US, setting them up for a lifetime of elevated blood pressure and cardiovascular issues. But before this feels all doom and gloom, let's be clear. The good news is you have control. Unlike some health risks that sneak up without warning, sodium intake is one factor we can actively manage with awareness and smarter choices. In the next section, we'll explore something practical, how to use salt the right way. Not too much, not too little, and in forms that actually benefit your health rather than harm it. So now the big question, if salt is essential but too much is harmful, how do we strike the balance? The answer isn't about cutting it out completely, it's about understanding dosage, timing, and smarter choices. Recommended daily intake. Most experts, including the American Heart Association, recommend aiming for about 1,500 milligrams per day for optimal health. That's less than 3/4 of a teaspoon. The absolute upper limit is 2,300 milligrams, about a full teaspoon. Think about that for a second. Just one fast food sandwich can pack over 1,000 milligrams of sodium. A bowl of canned soup, sometimes 800 or more. In other words, if you eat processed foods regularly, you've likely blown past your limit before dinner. Timing matters. Here's something most people don't think about. When you eat, sodium can influence how your body handles it. Having a salty dinner late at night may increase fluid retention, leading to bloating and higher morning blood pressure. On the other hand, spreading your sodium intake evenly across the day helps your body manage it more smoothly. For seniors, especially those with blood pressure concerns, it's wise to keep dinner lighter on sodium and focus on fresher ingredients. Choose the right sources. Not all salt is created equal. While chemically sodium chloride is sodium chloride, the source can make a difference in trace minerals and overall health impact. Sea salt and Himalayan pink salt contain small amounts of minerals like magnesium, potassium, and calcium. They won't cancel out the sodium effects, but they add a touch of balance. Iodized salt provides iodine, crucial for thyroid health, and a deficiency is still an issue for some Americans. The trick, use a light hand. Whichever type you prefer, the dosage matters more than the brand. Cooking tips. Here's a chef's secret. You can use herbs, spices, citrus, and vinegar to cut back on sodium without losing flavor. Garlic, basil, black pepper, paprika, or a squeeze of lemon can brighten a dish without relying on the shaker. One clever strategy: taste your food before adding salt. Many of us shake out habit, not need. Balance with potassium. Here is a fascinating fact. Potassium can help counteract some of sodium AS effects on blood pressure. Foods rich in potassium, like bananas, spinach, avocados, and sweet potatoes, help the body flush out excess sodium. In fact, many nutritionists recommend focusing not just on cutting sodium, but on boosting potassium intake. Mind the hidden sources. We can't emphasize this enough. Processed foods are the real culprit. Bread, pizza, and sandwiches are among the top sodium sources in the American diet. Even foods that don't taste salty, like breakfast cereals or sauces, can be loaded. So if you cook at home using fresh ingredients, you're already winning half the battle. At the end of the day, salt itself isn't evil. It's about the context. Using a pinch in your home cooking, likely safe and even beneficial. Relying on packaged meals and restaurant food every day. That's where the silent danger hides. In the next section, we'll cover something just as important: who should be most cautious with their sodium intake. Because while moderation is key for everyone, there are groups who need to be especially careful. Now, while all of us need to pay attention to sodium, there are certain groups of people who need to be extra cautious. For them, even moderate overconsumption can quickly turn into serious health risks. Let's break it down. Seniors. As we age, our kidneys become less efficient at filtering out excess sodium. That means older adults are more likely to experience fluid retention and higher blood pressure from salty meals. Combine that with the fact that many seniors are already managing conditions like hypertension or heart disease, and sodium suddenly becomes a much bigger deal. Pregnant women. During pregnancy, blood volume naturally increases to support the growing baby. Too much sodium can contribute to swelling, fluid retention, and in some cases, complications like gestational hypertension or preeclampsia. Doctors often recommend expectant mothers focus on fresh, whole foods and avoid highly processed, salty snacks. People with high blood pressure. This one's obvious, but crucial. Hypertension is incredibly common in the US, affecting nearly 1 in 2 adults. For these individuals, excess sodium acts like gasoline on a fire, worsening blood pressure and increasing risks of heart attack and stroke. Those with kidney disease. When the kidneys are already struggling, extra sodium is like overloading a failing filter. It causes fluid buildup, swelling in the legs and feet, and puts dangerous strain on the heart. Many doctors put kidney patients on very strict, low-sodium diets for this reason, people at risk of osteoporosis. Remember how sodium can pull calcium out of the body? Women after menopause and older men who are at risk for bone thinning should be especially careful. High-salt diets may accelerate bone loss, raising fracture risks. Individuals with heart failure. For those already living with weakened hearts, fluid balance is everything. Excess sodium makes the body hold onto water, which can overload the heart and worsen symptoms like shortness of breath, fatigue, and swelling. Now, here's an important note. Not everyone reacts to sodium the same way. Some people are more salt-sensitive than others. In fact, research shows African Americans and older adults are more likely to experience blood pressure spikes from sodium compared to younger, non-Hispanic white adults. This doesn't mean anyone is immune. It simply means some bodies are better equipped to handle excess, while others feel the effects more quickly. But at the end of the day, if you fall into one of these groups, or if you have a family history of heart disease, kidney problems, or high blood pressure, it's worth being extra mindful. A little awareness can literally add years to your life. So far, we've looked at the benefits, the dangers, the right way to use salt, and who should be most careful. Next, let's have some fun and explore practical everyday uses of salt beyond the kitchen table. Because this little mineral has played surprising roles in medicine, skincare, and even home remedies. We've spent a lot of time talking about the risks and the health science behind sodium. But let's not forget, this mineral has been a practical tool for centuries. Beyond flavoring our meals, people have used it in medicine, skincare, and even household cleaning. Let's take a tour through some of the surprising ways salt sneaks into our everyday lives. In food and cooking, of course, the kitchen is where salt shines most. It's not just about taste, it's about preservation. Long before refrigerators existed, salt was used to cure meats, pickle vegetables, and keep food safe for months. Even today, your bacon, pickles, or smoked salmon owe their shelf life to salt. Salt also enhances flavor in ways science can explain. It suppresses bitterness, balances sweetness, and brings out natural aromas in food. That's why even desserts often include a pinch. It makes chocolate richer, caramel smoother, and fruit pies more vibrant. As a home remedy, salt has a long history in folk medicine, and modern science supports some of these uses. Sore throat relief. Gargling with warm salt water can ease irritation, kill bacteria, and reduce swelling. It's one of the cheapest, safest remedies doctors still recommend. Nasal congestion. Saline sprays and rinses, basically sterilized salt water, can clear out mucus and allergens, providing relief during allergy season or when fighting a cold. Mouth health. Ever rinse your mouth with salt water after dental work? That's because it reduces bacteria and speeds healing. Dentists still recommend it after extractions or gum treatment. Skin care and beauty. Believe it or not, salt isn't just for seasoning. It's also a natural exfoliator. Salt scrubs. Many spas use sea salt scrubs to remove dead skin cells, improve circulation, and leave skin feeling refreshed. Bath soaks. Epsom salts, technically magnesium sulfate, not table salt but still in the salt family, are famous for relaxing sore muscles. A warm bath with these crystals can help relieve tension after a long day. Scalp treatments. Some people even use a pinch of salt in their shampoo to help reduce oil buildup and dandruff. Household uses. This mineral is as versatile in the home as it is in the kitchen. Stain removal. A sprinkle of salt can lift red wine stains if applied quickly. Cleaning power. Salt combined with vinegar or lemon can scrub pots, pans, and cutting boards without harsh chemicals. Deodorizing. A pinch of salt in sneakers or the garbage can help absorb odors. It's fascinating, isn't it? Something so small and inexpensive has dozens of roles beyond flavor. No wonder it was considered precious in the ancient world. But remember this. While salt can be helpful in all these ways, the biggest challenge we face today isn't lack of access, it's overconsumption. In other words, it's less about whether we should use it, and more about how much and in what context. Coming up next, we'll zoom out and ask, how does salt stack up against other flavoring options and food enhancers? And are there better alternatives we should lean on for long-term health? When we talk about reducing sodium, it's easy to feel like we're losing out on flavor. After all, salt has been with us for thousands of years. It's part of our DNA, part of our culture. But here's the truth. Cutting back doesn't mean eating bland food. It simply means getting creative with alternatives. Herbs and spices. Think about basil, rosemary, thyme, oregano. These aren't just seasonings, they're tiny flavor bombs loaded with antioxidants. Studies show that Americans who swap out even half of their salt for herbs and spices end up lowering blood pressure while still enjoying food. Imagine roasted chicken with garlic and rosemary, or chili with cumin, smoked paprika, and coriander. You won't even miss the extra salt. Citrus and vinegar acidity can trick the taste buds in the best way. A squeeze of lemon on grilled fish, a splash of vinegar on sautéed vegetables, or a drizzle of lime over tacos can brighten flavors just like salt does, without the risks of excess sodium. Potassium-rich alternatives. Here's something fascinating. While sodium can raise blood pressure, potassium does the opposite. It helps relax blood vessels and flushes excess sodium from the body. That's why some salt substitutes on the market contain potassium chloride instead of sodium chloride. They give you that salty taste with added heart benefits. But caution, people with kidney problems need to talk to their doctor before using these. Umami power. There's another trick up the culinary sleeve, umami. Foods like mushrooms, tomatoes, soy sauce, low-sodium versions, and nutritional yeast add depth and savory flavor, reducing the need for extra salt. Think about a hearty mushroom soup or a tomato-based pasta sauce, rich, flavorful, and satisfying without heavy sodium. Natural sea salts and fancy. Options: you've probably seen shelves stocked with Himalayan pink salt, Celtic sea salt, or black lava salt. They look exotic and often cost more. While they do contain trace minerals like magnesium or calcium, here's the catch. Nutritionally, they're almost identical to table salt. The key word here is almost. Yes, those minerals exist, but the amounts are so small you'd have to consume unsafe levels just to make a difference. So while these varieties may add interesting textures and flavors, they're not a free pass to load up on sodium. Processed food versus whole food. This is where the biggest difference lies, not in the salt shaker on your dining table, but in hidden sodium inside packaged meals, frozen pizzas, deli meats, and fast food. Over 70% of the sodium Americans consume comes from processed foods, not from sprinkling salt at home. So the smarter alternative? Focus on whole foods. Fresh vegetables, lean proteins, whole grains, and season them yourself. That way, you're in control. So here is the takeaway. We don't have to abandon flavor to protect our health. By leaning on herbs, citrus, umami, and mindful cooking, we can enjoy rich, satisfying meals while keeping our blood pressure in check. Up next, let's switch gears into something practical. The right way to use salt, dosage, timing, and smart combinations. Because sometimes, it's not what you eat, it's how you use it that makes the biggest difference. Salt itself isn't the villain, it's the quantity and the context that matter. So let's talk about how much is enough, how much is too much, and how to use it wisely in daily life. Recommended dosage health experts, including the American Heart Association, suggest that the average adult should aim for no more than 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day. That's roughly 1 teaspoon of table salt. But here's the kicker. Most Americans consume closer to 3,400 milligrams daily, often without realizing it. For those with high blood pressure, diabetes, or kidney disease, the recommended limit is even lower, around 1,500 milligrams a day. Timing matters too. Here is a subtle but fascinating fact. When you consume sodium, may also play a role in how your body handles it. Morning and daytime, your body is more active and your kidneys are working harder, which means it's easier to balance sodium intake. Late evening, eating salty snacks or heavy sodium dinners close to bedtime can lead to fluid retention, restless sleep, and even higher morning blood pressure. So if you're going to enjoy a saltier meal, make it at lunch, not late at night. Pairing salt with the right foods. Another smart strategy is balancing sodium with potassium. Remember, potassium helps offset the negative effects of sodium by relaxing blood vessels and encouraging sodium excretion. That means pairing a lightly salted baked potato with fresh spinach or avocado, a sandwich with turkey slices, with a banana or orange on the side. Soup or stew with extra beans, leafy greens or mushrooms. This balance helps protect the heart and keeps blood pressure steady. Forms of salt. What's the difference? Table salt. The standard in most kitchens, often iodized to prevent thyroid problems. Fine grains mean you can easily oversprinkle. Kosher salt. Flackier, less dense, so you often use less while still getting flavor. Chefs love it for this reason. Sea salt. Himalayan salt. Adds texture and trace minerals, but nutritionally, it's still sodium chloride. Salt. Substitutes. Potassium. Chloride blends can reduce sodium, but they're not safe for everyone, especially those with kidney issues or on certain medications. The bottom line. Whichever form you use, measure, don't guess. Cooking tips to cut back without losing flavor. Season in layers. Add a pinch during cooking and a tiny sprinkle at the end. This enhances flavor perception with less sodium. Use strong flavors. Garlic, onions, ginger, vinegar, and citrus can carry the taste, so you use less salt. Taste before adding. So many of us grab the shaker out of habit, not need. Gradual reduction. Your taste buds can adapt in just a few weeks. Cutting back slowly helps you enjoy food without craving extra sodium. So the message is clear. Salt in moderation can be part of a healthy life. It's not about cutting it out completely, but about using it with intention, pairing it wisely, and respecting your body's limits. For something so small and familiar, sodium packs a powerful punch. A little bit is essential for life. But too much? That's where the trouble begins. Let's step inside the body and see what happens when salt overloads the system. Impact on the heart and blood pressure. The most well-known effect of excess sodium is hypertension, or high blood pressure. Here's how it works. Sodium pulls water into the bloodstream. More water equals more volume, and more volume means your heart has to pump harder, creating pressure against artery walls. Over time, this pressure weakens blood vessels, raises the risk of heart attacks, and contributes to strokes. It is like running your car engine at red line every day. It is only a matter of time before something gives. Kidney strain. Your kidneys are the body's filter system, constantly balancing fluids and electrolytes. Too much salt forces them to work overtime, trying to flush out the excess. Long-term overload can damage delicate kidney tissues, lead to chronic kidney disease, increase the risk of kidney stones. It's no coincidence that people with kidney issues are told to strictly limit sodium intake. Brain health. Did you know high sodium can affect your mind too? Studies show a link between excess salt and cognitive decline. It's not just about blood pressure. It may also reduce blood flow to the brain, setting the stage for memory problems and even dementia in later years. So the habit of reaching for the salt shaker may not just affect your heart, but also your thinking and memory. Fluid retention and swelling. Many people notice this immediately after a salty meal: puffy fingers, swollen ankles, or bloating. This happens because sodium traps water in your tissues. While it might feel temporary, constant swelling can strain the heart and lead to discomfort in daily life. Hidden dangers in processed foods. Here, as a surprising fact, around 70% of the sodium Americans eat doesn't come from the salt shaker at home. It comes from processed and packaged foods, frozen meals, canned soups, fast food. Chips and snacks, even foods that don't taste salty like bread or breakfast cereal, can be loaded with sodium. It's the hidden salt that silently raises your risk. Bone health and stomach. Risks. Few people realize this, but too much sodium can also weaken bones by causing calcium loss through urine, increasing osteoporosis risk. Irritate the stomach lining, which over time may raise the chance of stomach cancer, so the effects reach far beyond just your heart. Who's most at risk? Some groups are especially vulnerable to sodium's harms. Seniors, whose kidneys aren't as efficient, people with high blood pressure or diabetes, African Americans who statistically face higher sensitivity to sodium, pregnant women where excess sodium can increase the risk of complications like preeclampsia. For these groups, keeping sodium intake low isn't just a suggestion, it's a lifeline. So while a pinch of salt enhances flavor, an overload silently chips away at your heart, kidneys, bones, and even your mind. But here's the good news: by becoming aware, by reading labels, and by making small daily changes, you can protect yourself and reclaim balance. Salt isn't inherently the villain. Our bodies truly need it. But there are groups of people for whom cutting back, or even avoiding it, can mean the difference between thriving and struggling. Let's look at who needs to be most careful. People with high blood pressure. This one is almost a given. If your blood pressure runs high, your doctor has probably already told you, reduce sodium. Even modest reductions can lower blood pressure within weeks. In fact, for some people, cutting back by just 1,000 milligrams a day can make a measurable difference. Seniors. As we age, our kidneys naturally lose some efficiency. That means the body has a harder time clearing out excess sodium. Add in the fact that many older adults are already managing blood pressure or heart conditions, and too much salt quickly becomes dangerous. Pregnant women. During pregnancy, fluid balance is crucial. High sodium intake may increase the risk of preeclampsia, a serious condition marked by high blood pressure and swelling. Expecting mothers should be especially cautious about processed foods and fast food meals. People with kidney disease. For anyone with kidney problems, sodium restriction is not optional. It's a requirement. The kidneys are like filters, and too much salt clogs and stresses those filters, accelerating damage. People with heart failure. When the heart already struggles to pump, excess sodium makes it worse by pulling in more fluid. This leads to swelling, shortness of breath, and further strain on an already weak heart. Doctors often prescribe low-sodium diets as part of treatment. People with diabetes high salt intake can increase risks for both the heart and kidneys. organs already vulnerable in those with diabetes. Limiting sodium is one more way to protect long-term health. Families with children. Here's a surprising one. Kids. American children are consuming far more sodium than they need, largely from pizza, sandwiches, and processed snacks. High-salt diets early in life can set the stage for high blood pressure later on. Teaching kids to enjoy less salty foods now can literally shape their health decades into the future. So here's the bottom line. While everyone should keep an eye on sodium, these groups, seniors, those with heart or kidney disease, people with diabetes, pregnant women and children, need to be especially vigilant. For them, limiting salt isn't just a lifestyle choice, it's a form of protection. But here's a question. If salt is risky for so many, what about alternatives? Are there healthier ways to season and preserve food without relying so heavily on it? So if cutting back on sodium is important, what can we use instead? Because let's be honest, food without flavor just isn't fun. No one wants bland chicken or tasteless veggies. Thankfully, nature gives us a whole toolkit of alternatives. Fresh herbs and spices, parsley, cilantro, basil, dill, rosemary. Herbs add brightness and depth without a single grain of salt. Spices like cumin, paprika, turmeric, garlic powder, and black pepper can transform a dish. In fact, many people find that once they experiment with herbs and spices, they don't miss salt at all. Citrus power. A squeeze of lemon or lime can wake up flavors in the same way salt does. The acidity tricks your tongue, making food taste fresher and more vibrant. Try roasting vegetables with lemon zest. You'll be amazed. Vinegars, balsamic, apple cider, red wine vinegar. These add tanginess and complexity. Salad dressings, marinades, even a splash on cooked greens can make a big difference. Umami-rich foods. Umami is the savory flavor that salt often enhances. But you can also get it from mushrooms, tomatoes, miso, nutritional yeast, or even a dash of low-sodium soy sauce. These bring richness without overloading sodium. Low-sodium salt substitutes. Some products swap sodium chloride for potassium chloride. They taste salty, but don't raise blood pressure the same way. However, and this is important, people with kidney disease or on certain medications should check with a doctor before using them. Too much potassium can be just as harmful. Smart package choices. Here's where label reading becomes powerful. Many food companies now offer low-sodium or reduced sodium versions of soups, sauces, and snacks. They may cost the same, but they help you cut down without changing habits drastically. Cooking at home versus eating out. One of the simplest comparisons, meals cooked at home versus restaurant meals. On average, restaurant dishes pack 2 to 3 times more sodium than homemade ones. Cooking at home gives you control, and it's easier to experiment with flavor alternatives. The takeaway: cutting down on salt doesn't mean cutting out flavor. Herbs, citrus, spices, vinegars, and umami-rich foods can make meals more exciting and often healthier than the salty versions we were used to. When it comes to sodium, opinions can feel scattered. Some articles warn of catastrophe, while others dismiss concerns entirely. So, what do actual health experts say? Let's bring their voices into the conversation. What doctors recommend. The American Heart Association is clear. Most adults should aim for no more than 1,500 milligrams of sodium per day. That's less than a teaspoon of table salt. Yet the average American consumes over 300–400 milligrams daily, more than double the healthy limit. Cardiologists emphasize this point. Lowering sodium can reduce blood pressure within weeks, cut the risk of stroke, and protect the kidneys. Even people without hypertension benefit. The scientific community's findings. Researchers have tracked populations worldwide, and the pattern is consistent. Communities with lower sodium diets tend to have lower blood pressure, fewer strokes, and longer life expectancy. On the flip side, societies where processed and fast food dominate see skyrocketing cases of hypertension and heart disease. A landmark study published in the New England Journal of Medicine estimated that cutting just 1 gram of salt per day from the global diet could prevent millions of premature deaths annually. Millions. Dietitians often remind us that taste buds adapt. Within just a couple of weeks of reducing salt, your tongue recalibrates. Suddenly, foods that once seemed normal taste far too salty. It's proof that our cravings are learned and can be unlearned. Nutritionists also stress a simple strategy. Don't just take away salt, add in flavor. The more colorful your plate, fresh herbs, garlic, citrus, spices, the less you'll rely on sodium. Doctors and nutritionists often suggest these steps for real-world change. Read food labels. Aim for products with less than 140 milligrams per serving, classified as low sodium. Cook more at home. Even small swaps, like homemade salad dressing instead of bottled, make a difference. Use the half rule. If a recipe calls for a teaspoon of salt, try half. Most of the time you won't miss it. Retrain the palate. Gradual reduction works better than cold turkey cuts. Watch condiments, soy sauce, ketchup, barbecue sauce, and dressings are often sodium bombs. The expert consensus is clear. Sodium is essential, but in today's America, we're consuming far more than we need. By becoming mindful, reading labels, and making small shifts, you can dramatically improve heart health, brain health, and longevity. Imagine yourself 10, 20, even 30 years from now. What does health look like? What kind of life are you living? Are you active, playing with your grandkids, gardening, traveling, walking the beach at sunrise? Or are you sitting in a doctor's office, managing conditions that could have been prevented? Believe it or not, one of the biggest deciding factors may be sitting quietly in your pantry: sodium. Protecting heart health. By reducing salt today, you're literally giving your heart less strain to carry. That translates to lower blood pressure, reduced risk of stroke, and less chance of heart failure down the road. Think of it as a gift to your future self. Safeguarding the brain. We've already seen how excess sodium can impair blood flow to the brain. Long term, that means memory issues, foggy thinking, and even dementia risks. Cutting back now supports clearer thinking, sharper focus, and healthier aging. Kidney preservation. Every day, your kidneys filter blood like hard-working factory workers. If you overload them with sodium for years, they wear out, but if you lighten their load, you extend their life. That's prevention at its best. Stronger bones. Sodium excess pulls calcium out of the body, slowly weakening bones. By balancing salt, you're also protecting against osteoporosis and fractures, which are especially dangerous for seniors. Better nutrition. Overall. Here's something most people don't realize. When you cut back on sodium, you often cut back on processed food and eat more whole foods. That means more potassium from fruits and veggies, more fiber, more antioxidants, and each of those adds another layer of protection against chronic disease. Longevity and quality of life. Prevention isn't about fear, it's about freedom. Lower sodium intake today means more energy tomorrow, more independence as you age, more moments with family, not hospitals. Because at the end of the day, prevention is about buying time, time you can spend on the things that truly matter. Sometimes statistics and studies feel far away, but when we hear stories of real people living in neighborhoods just like ours, it hits differently. Let us look at a few examples of Americans who took control of their sodium intake and what happened next. George's story. The retired teacher George, a retired high school teacher from Ohio, loved his deli sandwiches. Ham and cheese with chips on the side, almost every lunch. At his annual checkup, his doctor noticed his blood pressure creeping up. George was shocked when he saw how much sodium was in those deli meats and chips. He made a simple swap: turkey breast baked at home instead of packaged cold cuts, and carrot sticks instead of chips. Within 3 months, his blood pressure dropped by 12 points. Today, at 72, George says he feels more energetic on his morning walks, and he doesn't even miss the extra salt. Maria's story, the busy mom. Maria, a mother of 3 from Texas, relied on frozen dinners to get meals on the table fast. One evening, her daughter came home from school with a nutrition worksheet showing how much salt is in popular frozen meals. Maria was floored. Together as a family, they started cooking simple sheet pan dinners, chicken, veggies, potatoes with olive oil and herbs. Not only did they slash their sodium intake, but Maria says dinner has become their favorite family time. She noticed her swollen ankles disappeared and her husband's blood pressure improved too. David's story. The truck driver. David, a long-haul truck driver from Missouri, practically lived on fast food. Burgers, fries, pizza, whatever was quick at rest stops. At 50, he had constant headaches and fatigue. His doctor suggested one small change. Aim for 1 low-sodium meal a day. David started packing homemade sandwiches, fresh fruit, and unsalted nuts in his truck cooler. 6 months later, he lost 15 pounds. His blood pressure medication was reduced, and he says he feels clear-headed on the road. Carol's story. The grandma with energy. Carol, a 68-year-old grandmother from Florida, wanted to be active with her grandkids but felt sluggish. She didn't realize her healthy canned soups and crackers were loaded with sodium. When her daughter pointed it out, she switched to fresh, homemade vegetable soup with herbs and garlic. Within weeks, she noticed less bloating, her rings fit better, and she had more energy to play outside with the grandkids. Carol says, "I thought giving up salt meant giving up taste, but I discovered real flavor." All right, let's pause for a moment. We've covered a lot of ground so far, from the history of salt to the hidden sodium in our diets, from the benefits in moderation to the risks of excess, to real-life stories of people who made a change. Let's do a quick recap together. Salt is essential. Our bodies need sodium to function, for nerves, muscles, and hydration balance. But too much is dangerous. Overconsumption is linked to high blood pressure, stroke, kidney strain, and even bone loss. Most sodium comes from processed foods, not the salt shaker, but breads, canned goods, frozen meals, fast food, and snacks, the safe range. Health experts in the US generally recommend staying under 200 to 300 milligrams a day. That's about 1 teaspoon. For many adults, especially seniors, aiming closer to 1,500 milligrams is even better. Smart swaps work. Fresh cooking, herbs, spices, citrus, and whole foods can cut sodium while boosting flavor. Real people see real results. Lower blood pressure, less swelling, better energy. These are benefits that show up in weeks, not years. Here's the truth. Salt isn't just a number on a nutrition label. It's about your independence, your heart health, your energy to play with your grandkids, to travel, to wake up each day feeling strong. When we cut back, we're not just avoiding disease, we're unlocking a better quality of life. Think about it this way. What if you swapped just 1 salty snack for fresh fruit today? What if you cooked 1 homemade dinner this week instead of ordering takeout? What if you checked 1 nutrition label tomorrow before tossing it in your cart? These small steps add up. You don't have to overhaul everything overnight. You just have to start. So here we are, at the end of this journey. We've uncovered the story of salt, from its sacred place in ancient trade routes to its hidden presence in today's processed foods. We've seen how our bodies depend on sodium for survival, yet how easily the balance can tip into harm. We've heard about the silent dangers, high blood pressure, heart disease, kidney strain, but we've also discovered the incredible benefits that come when we cut back. Salt, at its heart, is a symbol. It represents flavor, tradition, even life itself. But like so many things, the dose makes the poison. Too little, and the body falters. Too much, and it breaks down. And in America today, with fast food on every corner and convenience meals at our fingertips, that balance is harder to strike than ever. But here's the good news. You hold the power. You don't need a drastic diet, a complicated cleanse, or expensive supplements. You need awareness, small shifts, and consistency. Read those labels. Cook at home when you can. Choose fresh, colorful foods. Flavor with herbs, spices, and citrus. And most importantly, listen to your body, because every teaspoon less brings you closer to better energy, lower risk, and a stronger, more independent life. Next time you reach for the salt shaker, pause for a second. Ask yourself, is this seasoning or is this habit? That one mindful moment could change your health story. Thank you for walking with me through this deep dive. If this video gave you insight, if it sparked a moment of reflection, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone you love. Because the people closest to us deserve to live healthier, stronger lives too. I'll leave you with this. Health is not about perfection, it's about progress. And when it comes to salt, even the smallest steps can lead to the biggest changes. Until next time, stay curious, stay healthy, and stay empowered.